Hello, and welcome to Reel Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. Very excited to have Ernie Quiroz back with me on the show. Welcome, Ernie.
Hello, hello.
Ernie is with us live from the Santa Barbara Film Festival. We'll be, I'm sure, talking about that. And yeah, look how Santa Barbara it is. Actually, a hotel room at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. But we're here today to do our best of the year episode, which is always really exciting. I think 2022 was a great year for movies. I would say before we get into our 10 through 6, I would say unlike some years where I had one film that was my absolute favorite, I have almost could probably my top five almost could be interchangeable. I'm not sure for you, Ernie, what it was like for you this last year. I mean, you see like 600 movies a year or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, no, I think it was a very good year. It feels like cinema is back, movies are back in a lot of ways. Still a ways to go since the pandemic, but I feel like we're getting there. And I do totally agree with you. Like my top, first of all, even coming up with a top 10 was a struggle. There was easily, I think, 20 to 30 that I could have pulled from, and then
Yeah.
my top five again, interchangeable almost.
Yeah, same with me. It was some years you have like for you, the year that Spencer was your number one. Like some years you have one that you're like, oh, this is my number one, and then there's everything else sort of. And that for me was like the year Florida Project was my number one, and then it was like this is gonna be hard to beat. This year, my number one, I picked partially to bring attention to it more than anything. It could have been interchangeable with two, three, four, five. So with that said, let's get into it, and we'll start with my number 10 film, which is Fire in the Mountains, an Indian film by the director Ajitpal Singh. We reviewed this actually on a recent episode of Hidden Gems. This is a film I felt like didn't get enough attention, which is one of the reasons I put it on my top 10. Indian film about a woman who is trying to get a road built up to the area where she lives in a remote village so that she does not have to lug her son down every day up and down the mountain from her house in order to get him to his therapy or to his doctor's appointments. And her husband starts to squander away all of the money they've been saving for some religious reasons. And so it's kind of a woman's fury, if you will, is what this film is about. But I just thought it was a great film and one that kind of took me by surprise.
Yeah, that was a good film. I remember talking about it in our episode, and I liked a lot of the aspects of religion, tradition versus modernism, and religion versus I guess human secularism, which is just those debates that are in a lot of those films. I really liked it. Didn't your parents see this, or somebody in your family saw this and they were kind of like surprised that they liked it, or
Right. My parents did watch it. They liked it, but they were surprised. They were like, "It's kind of a downer." And I was like, "Yeah, well, welcome to welcome to Oscar season or whatever you want to call the end of the year. You know,
But
you
I
kind
think
of see."
it's a good sign for people, if you don't like this type of movie, or you don't think you're gonna be open to this type of thing, give it a shot, give it a chance, and I think, you know, it'll resonate with you. There's some things in there that I think
Yeah,
people
exactly. And it's
might
not like
like.
slow and boring to, I think, mainstream audiences the way some maybe art house movies are that I tend to love.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely give it a chance. So
Okay. Well, that is serendipitous because we'll stick in the same part of the world for my number 10, which is RRR,
oh no.
which which I actually saw pretty late in the game. I remember when it sort of made a big splash in the summer, and people started talking about it, and I remember, I wanted to see it during that sort of summer theatrical release, and I just didn't get a chance to make it out. And of course it's on Netflix, and I could have seen it, but I didn't. I wanted to watch it on the big screen, and I wanted to watch it more importantly with an audience. So I waited because I knew it's like, okay, this is going to come back. This is going to get some awards attention. So I'm hoping that they're going to bring it back, and indeed they did, and that's how we saw it. And we did get a chance to see it with an audience, and it was, a few of the audience members had already seen it, so it's almost got like this cult sort of status.
Yeah.
For people, I think people have probably know about the movie, but if you don't know about the movie, it is so hard to describe because it's like five genres. It's a buddy bromance, comedy, action, musical, superhero, Indian, Tollywood film. It's probably the best superhero movie in the last couple years, better than any Marvel movie for sure. And when I say superhero, I don't mean like, guys in costumes fighting aliens or whatever, but it's just this insane over the top action movie that is actually based on some historical figures in India. It takes place in the 20s, and it's about these two guys, real life guys, fighting for this is under the British colonialism, under the British Empire, and fighting for freedom. But they're these insane action heroes who also go have a dance contest. It's utterly bizarre. Uh, so many things were unexpected. It went in so many different directions. Even me talking about it, you will not just go in blind, and it's just a good time. It's a really good time, and that's why I liked it in the theaters with an audience that has those moments where you can kind of laugh and cheer, and just enjoy cinema for what it is.
And I think that's where I missed out because I did not see it in theater. I watched it on Netflix and I was bored and I thought it looked like a Bollywood video game. Honestly, the special effects I thought were really cheesy. I just couldn't get into it. The friends that I have that love it, even here in Salem, that loved it and that were telling everyone about it, saw it in the theater. And I think maybe it's that type of movie that's meant to be experienced that way. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's the it comes with this warning at the beginning saying that all the animals, there were no animals harmed in the making of this movie, which is laughable because the animals in it is so clearly CGI that these are
Yeah, no,
CGI
it looks
animals.
I noticed that the lion looks like a C or a tiger, I can't remember, but it's CGI. Yeah, I
But
saw it a little while
that's
ago. So,
which sort of like it's just funny because that's part of the charm, part of the fun
right.
of it. And it is long. It's close to 3 hours, and it does sag in the middle, sag at parts. And but in a way, it's that's part of the over the topness. If it was half the run length, I don't I'm not sure what you would cut out, but B, that's almost like it's the more is more philosophy of filmmaking.
Yeah, definitely one that probably need to see with a group at the very least. So,
Yeah.
so we'll move on to my number nine, which couldn't be more different from your last one. My number nine film is Women Talking by director Sarah Polley, who I think is getting to become one of my favorite filmmakers. She had this huge gap since her last movie. I've loved everything she's made, which is not very many. I think this is what her fourth or fifth film. This is a film, another one that's maybe not for everyone, but I saw it and I was really blown away by the intelligence and the fierce performances in this movie. And a commitment to doing something really different artistically. This is unlike anything Sarah Polley's made before. It's based on a book that she adapted the book for the screenplay. It's about a group of women in kind of a religious enclave who there's been some horrible assaults and abuse and rapes happening against the women. The men have been taken away for one night with one man who was kind of new, well, not new to the group, but not at fault who is there as their note taker because the women are illiterate, not able to take their own notes, and they have this meeting to kind of decide what they're going to do. So it's a very talky movie, but to me, it was absolutely enthralling, in part because of the great performances. Jesse Buckley, who I think was in two or three of my favorite films last year, including the fabulous movie Men, which is in my runners up list, didn't make my top 10, but she just continues to astound me with her absolutely terrific performances. And again, in this one, plays one of the women who has a lot to lose by leaving. She's got children. She's got a husband, but her husband is also one of the abusers. I think this film, it could be accused of being a little bit too intellectual, too dry, maybe a polemic, if you will, rather than a story. It's not really a story in a conventional sense, but I admired it in that way. Nobody ever said, Bella Tarr, for instance, has films that are rich in story. Sometimes movies take you in a different direction, and I definitely felt that way with this one.
Yeah, no, Women Talking is great, and it narrowly missed my list. I did a lot of debating on it. This is one that could easily be on there. It is no, I didn't yes, it's talky, but I mean it's right there in the title, but I never once did that ever bother me, or did I feel like that it became too talky, or um because these characters are so well done and well portrayed, and it keeps it moving. It's very much like a procedural. I you think of other movies like like 12 Angry Men, or you think about oddly, I remember thinking of films like 1776, where like you have all the founding fathers sort of debating the Constitution, or debating the independence, and you have like just different people from different viewpoints and
Yeah, that's
making
a
different
great point. 12
arguments.
Angry Men too. I think those are great references.
Yeah,
It's
where
like
where
fascinating. You want to see where it's going to
it's
go, and that's
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And it's not, yes, obviously it's not very, maybe not visually exciting, but it's so mentally intellectual stimulating. And so many great performances, like you said. Um, it's a shame that it did, it didn't get more nominations than it did. And I don't know, maybe all the female actors sort of cancel each other out, and they didn't know who to nominate, or what, and how Sarah Polley didn't get a nomination is beyond me. So
She should have been nominated for director. It's a crime, I think,
yeah,
that someone, some of the directors that are in there definitely should not be in there, and she should be, because
yeah,
this is an auteur movie if I've ever seen one. So
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
so what's your number nine?
Again, now for something completely different. This was another one that I kind of debated, and this is another one that almost was more experienced than anything else, and almost for what it represents, and that's Top Gun Maverick.
Oh no,
Um,
no, Ernie, no.
Oh, see, no, I no, for me, uh, it worked on multiple levels. I mean, not only, yes, I did see it in IMAX. It's an amazing film to see on IMAX. Uh, for the filmmaking that they were able to do, I thought was really great. But there was some substance to the film, and I don't understand if people did not, there's things about guilt, and about fathers and sons, and to have Val Kilmer come back, I was touched that he came back in the role that he did, and it really hit me. But at the end of the day, the reason I put it on my list is it really saved theaters. I mean, it at a time when theaters are struggling, it was the film that finally got people back into theaters, and it was, I think Christopher Nolan kind of wanted to do it with Tenet, and he thought that was going to be the movie, and that kind of fizzled out for a lot of reasons. But this was the film that for better or for worse, it saved theaters, and it kept theaters afloat for that time, for the summer. Um, and it wasn't just a nostalgia play. I thought it was a really, really well done film with some really great effects and a really great story.
Well, we're running behind, so I'm going to reserve my comments for another time. But I disagree. I did see it. I did think it was a nostalgia play. I thought there were some great elements. I thought the action sequences and the planes and the way they photographed those were really exciting and not CGI, which I really appreciated. It looked very real. I'm not a big Miles Teller fan, and I thought his character it just seemed like, oh, Goose's son rehashed. A lot of it just felt like there was too many sequences where they basically just recycled scenes from the first film for my taste.
But
So,
it's Star Wars,
um,
and it's Star Wars. It's basically Star Wars.
yeah, another series. I'm not. I will just keep. Anyway, we'll move on to my number 8 film, which is Lingui, The Sacred Bonds by director Mahamat Salah Haroun, an African filmmaker that I've really appreciated all of his films. And this is for one of the first ones I actually got to see when it actually came out, because most of his films I went back and watched. And it is a film that deals with the topic of abortion, which actually like 3 or 4 films this last year did that. This one is the one that made my top 10, although 2 of the other films that deal with this topic are in my runners up list. So there were some great films about this topic, but this is from the perspective of a country where it is outlawed, and a woman and her daughter are struggling with this issue. And it gets into kind of also the roles of women in these villages and how they either support or don't support each other, and how much that has to play. Again, another movie with really amazing female performances that I thought, to me, really just stood out.
Yeah, did we talk about this in another
Yeah,
episode?
we did in the
I think
Hidden
we did.
Gems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This was another one that I really liked too. And again, by virtue of the number 10, had to debate on whether it made the cut or not.
Right. There's like 30 films that could have been 4-star films
Yeah,
this year for
and
me.
like you
Yeah.
said, this was one along with Happening, along with of course there was the documentaries, the
The
Janes,
Janes
Call
and Call
Jane.
Jane, which I liked the Janes better, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So and it's obviously it's an issue, and these films were sort of made pre Roe the getting overturned. So it's interesting to see, like, yeah, this is an issue that is still relevant and bubbling, and even more so now, and it's interesting to kind of see it with that lens now. But yeah, you're right. It's these, again, like Happening was France in the 50s. So, and this is obviously Africa. So you think these things are happening in other countries or other time periods, that, oh, that could never happen here, and of course now they're happening here.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think this movie, from the perspective of a place where it's been illegal for a while, it shows how these things have, for instance, there are these women who in the community, and even in a smaller village, like it takes place in this movie, who are kind of serving this role of doing these, underground abortions,
Hmm.
and trying to do the best with the skills they have. So, but yeah, really, really great film. So you're number 8.
So my number 8 is a documentary, and it's a documentary about documentaries. It's called Subject. I don't know. It's still in the festival circuit. I don't think it's gotten sort of wide release, so a lot of people may not have seen it, which is kind of why I struggled whether to include it or not. But uh, get a chance to see it if you can. I'm not sure when it's going to come out. So it's called Subject, and it follows a number of subjects from other documentaries, sort of landmark documentaries, and examines exactly the role of documentarians, of documentaries, and what that even means. So for example, they'll catch up with one of the kids from Hoop Dreams, who's now,
Mm,
an adult. They catch up with some of the kids from the movie Wolf Pack. They get caught up with the main character from Capturing the Freedmans. And sort of the main thrust is, now that we're sort of living in the golden age of documentaries with Netflix and other streamers, and sort of like true crime documentaries, like what what does that mean? And you know, uh, just the term subject is interesting because that implies that a person has no agency, that they're being acted upon, that there's object and subject. So even that term, like, what agency does a person have in telling their own story? Um, should they be compensated for telling their own story? Should documentary subjects be paid?
mm.
This is their life story. Um, what does that mean in terms of journalistic integrity? There's just a lot of issues in the film, examining of exactly what is a documentary and what is the role of a documentary in a person's life. This is not a fictional film. This is a person's life.
Yeah, I think that, you think about where we came from, like the Maisels brothers and some of the films they did, like Grey Gardens, which, later on some people felt maybe deeply problematic in terms of the way that people were portrayed, or how much did they know the way they were being seen. or how much agency did they have? And then today, where we have some filmmakers, I think about the one I just watched that didn't make my top 10, but All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, where the subject, in this case Nan Golden, actually participated pretty heavily in the making of the film. You know, it's a lot of her photography, her artwork, her voiceover used in the film, where it seems like some filmmakers are starting to rethink that and think about how much they more involve the people that they're making the movies about in the making of it, so they feel like they
Exactly.
have more agency, which I think is really
Exactly.
interesting subject to
Exactly.
explore.
And even something like, again, like Hoop Dreams, Hoop Dreams was made, let's face it, is made by a white guy, middle-aged white guy. And he goes into inner city Chicago to basically tell the story of these young black men and black families. Like, why would that ever happen now? Like, would we ever do that now, where, this outsider sort of comes into this community to say, I'm gonna tell your story? No, I don't think. But Hoop Dreams is an amazing film, a remarkable film. So
Yeah,
these are some of the
a lot
questions
of
it talks
questions.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, so we'll move on to my number seven film, which is Marte, which it means Mars One, by director Gabriel Martins. This is a film I actually saw at Sundance last year, not this year's Sundance. And I was like, oh, I wonder if it will ever see the light of day. It's a Brazilian film about a working class family struggling to just kind of make ends meet. And then kind of a right wing candidate takes over as president of Brazil, and kind of, it's not really focused on that. The politics is in the backdrop, but we see how things are affected in their lives. It's a family movie with really strong, rich characters, which is one of the things I loved about it. There's a young son, who his father wants him to become a soccer star. He's really good at soccer, but he's actually a science. That's what he really wants to do. He's into science and NASA and outer space and space exploration. That's his passion. And then the daughter, who's in college, is exploring her sexuality and beginning to realize she's attracted to women. And then the parents, their lives are explored. So I just really loved. I miss seeing these kinds of movies in out in theaters and out in places. And luckily, it did get a little bit of distribution, although they buried it. But Netflix got it, and it is available now on Netflix, so you can watch it. Of course, they just dumped it on there, and it's had no marketing whatsoever. But I was glad at least some people can see it now, because it was one of those films at the film festival. I thought, oh no, this isn't one that's probably likely to get picked up and distributed. So
Yeah, yeah. This is one film. This is the downside of watching 700 films a year. I remember seeing it at Sundance. I guess it'd been over a year ago now, but um, in that Sundance week, saw like 40 films, and honestly, I remember liking it, but beyond that, it did not make an impression on me, just because of like I'm seeing so
how
many
many
films
things
and
you
such a
saw? Yeah.
yeah. It's tough to sort of
When you see
stand
that
out.
many, it's
So
hard. I saw like 10, and and so for me it was easier to sort which
yeah.
ones rose to the top, because there were a few mediocre ones, particularly the ones that were really buzzed about, like Cha Cha Real Smooth. I still remember that one
Oh
because that
yeah.
was their big
Well,
buzzed about movie, and
yeah.
I was like, why aren't more people seeing Mars One instead of this movie?
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's sort of par for the course, I think, for Sundance.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Is that the buzzy films are not the ones worth watching. So I have been meaning to check it out, to rewatch it, and I am glad it's on Netflix. But again, the sort of the Netflix double-edged sword of, yes, it's available, but now
Does anybody know it's there though?
it's, so yeah, it's sort of in this sea of other films and
Yeah,
sea
yeah.
of
I wish it
obscurity.
had gotten theatrical distribution, but
Yeah.
at least it's not just gone. So anyway, we need to keep moving. So
So
you're number
anyway, my
seven.
next film, since I picked documentary, I'm gonna stick with a documentary, and I'm gonna stick with my idea of experiential films that were on the big screen. I'm gonna go with Moonage Daydream, which was the Bowie documentary, which whether you're a Bowie fan or not, I think is worth watching. For people that don't know the film, this isn't your typical Bowie biopic. This isn't sort of a Wikipedia documentary where we're like, okay, he was born and then he did this and then he did this. This is really more of an impressionistic sort of experimental way of dealing with Bowie's life. Just a lot of footage, concert footage, behind the scenes footage that's put together in a very almost like a tapestry sort of way of where you're not, like I said, you're not going to get spelled out everything that happened in his life. So if you're looking
Yeah.
for sort of like the biographical things, like this is not it. But if you just want to be immersed in Bowie and Bowie's life and the zeitgeist and in the timing and what he did for fashion and art and music and just sort of be part of his world. This is a sort of a great way to do it. And again, this is something I saw at IMAX, and it's just you're just plopped into this world, Bowie's world, and sort
That'd
of
be a very cool
experience.
movie to see in
Yeah,
IMAX. It's very
yeah.
visual. Yeah, I also really liked it. Didn't make my top 10, but I did enjoy it. I think especially for Bowie, if you're not going in for a traditional movie where you learn anything, you just want to see, you want to maintain the mystery of Bowie. This one does it. So, so we got to move on. I'll move on to my number six film, Nope, by director Jordan Peele. I felt like critics missed the boat on this movie. I loved it. I think he's doing something completely different. It's not Get Out. It's not supposed to be Get Out, and I was really disappointed that this was another one that was actually did pretty well at the box office, and people did go see it, and didn't get any Oscar nominations. I really enjoyed this movie. It's kind of a Close Encounters ish type of sci-fi. It's not really a horror movie, which I think is one of the things that threw people about it. I thought the lead performances were fantastic. It really stuck with me. I've thought a lot about this movie since I saw it. I think Jordan Peele has a lot going. If anything, the movie has too much going on. There's a lot of ideas going on in this movie. I'm curious what you thought about it, Marie. I mean, with Ernie, because I can't remember if we ever talked about it or not. If you liked it.
We never talked about it because I had not seen it. I honestly, um I don't know. After Us, I mean, Get Out was amazing. Yes, I was a little disappointed in Us. So when Nope came out, I honestly wasn't that excited, and it just never, uh, I you get to the point of like I have so many other things to watch. I never can go back to the things I want to go back. So yeah, I never had a chance to see it. I never had a chance to
There's a
see it.
small contingent of critics like me who love this movie. It's not the majority, but I think you're either on its wavelength or you're not. I think the movie explores the idea of Black history being erased or rewritten, and in this case, Black Hollywood history, and it's bringing this into like a sci-fi context of witnesses to history and who gets to determine things. I don't know. There's a lot. It's a very complex movie for what the genre it's trying to pull off, and I loved it. I absolutely, and I thought it looked fantastic. So
Yeah.
so what is your number six?
So my number six, is a film that's currently on Netflix, and I think this is one of I think all of my films I saw in the theaters except for this one, and this sort of bucks my trend, but proves my trend, I guess, of experiential films. All Quiet on the Western Front. This
Mm,
is something that even at home on Netflix on the big TV was still an amazing experience. And a slew of technical awards, but I think it's a great film. I mean, people probably know the story. We're running out of time. But this was an intense, visceral experience of putting you in World War One.
yeah,
Um,
it's a great
and
film.
yeah,
It's like my number 11,
yeah.
seriously. Like I was really debating, and because it did get some awards, and I think it is the favorite to win Best International Feature at the Oscars. Um, gosh, it's a great war film in that it really brings home the devastation of war
Mhm.
in a way that I hadn't quite seen before, to be honest. And I've seen a lot of war movies, and I thought it was just really impactful. So, yeah, I know we need to wrap up, but that is a great number six. I almost made my list, Ernie. So, All Quiet on the Western Front, Darius Finley, a great pick. Make sure to check out our next episode. We'll be doing our top five. Our website, realfilmsnobs.com. We're on Twitter. We're not on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're all over the place. Thank you very much. Have a great day and great movies. Bye bye.